Hello everyone, and welcome back to Liberty Park Music for another Piano Etudes lessons. In our piano lessons, we spend a lot of time talking about how we use our hands and fingers, which makes sense given that these guys are what are doing most of the heavy lifting. They're doing most of the work. That said, we do have some other things that we can use to help our hands do their jobs a little bit better, and probably the most significant thing that we have is the sustain pedal. Now, how you use the sustain pedal is actually a rather big topic, and the coordination necessary to use it is basically a school of itself in terms of piano playing. However, as with any skill, the more that you do it, the better you get at it. So for this lesson, we're going to give you a brief introduction of the sustain pedal using a piece that is well suited for it, and hopefully we'll get you started on practicing the coordination of the sustain pedal, both with this piece and then for some other pieces into the future. So let's check out this piece. So, quite a different looking piece than what we've seen so far in this beginning module of the Piano Etudes course. This is a chorale style piece, chorale style meaning that it has a homophonic texture of voices all moving at the same time, following the same rhythmic scheme, and the ability to keep this sounding musical as you progress through these big, gently moving blocks of chords is part of the etude focus, if you will. Making this homophonic texture musical is the technique of interest. Now, in contrast with more movement-based etudes, the very thing that makes this piece a little challenging is also what makes it look relatively simple on the page. If you scan through, you can see that there's very little movement, and that while that would seem to be an indication of ease, you may find it's actually a little difficult to keep track of what's moving when, because there are no big movements to use as landmarks. It's like if you're walking or hiking through a landscape that's mostly flat or is all forest, it can be hard to get your bearings if you don't have any clear geographical landmarks. So, identifying your areas of repetition is actually double important in this case because you want to be certain of what's moving and what's not. And fortunately, we have one big repetition in this piece to help us out. You can see that the entire third system is a repeat of the first, aside from the slight difference in dynamic indication, of course. And that's going to be a big help when everything else looks basically the same. Let's go back to the beginning here to hit our preliminaries. This is a 4/4 piece in the so-called walking speed of andante. I like to take this piece at a little more of a moderato, which is slightly faster. It's already a slow, almost funereal piece. In fact, it shares a lot aesthetically with Chopin's famous Funeral March. So I like to give it a little extra momentum, personally. And, of course, you can see this marking of con pedale below the first measure. This is our indicator with pedal, telling us to play this piece with the pedal. We'll talk much more about this in a moment, but we have one last thing to point out. Take note of the key signature, or scale signature of the piece. 1 sharp. What scale do you know that uses 1 sharp? If you thought G major, that's great. Now ask yourself if this piece sounds like it's anything close to the happy-sounding sonority of G major. No, of course it doesn't, which means that it must be using the relative minor scale of G major that also uses 1 sharp, which is E minor. This piece is in the scale or key of E minor. Okay, enough of that. Let's talk about using the pedal. Now, before we start talking about the pedal, let's spare a few words for the technique in the hands and fingers for playing these block chords. Try to keep a nice, still, clean structure as you go through them. Hopefully you can see when I'm playing those that my hands are not making a bunch of fingery movements. They're keeping mostly still, rising and falling in a controlled manner, moving only as much as is necessary to play any new notes. Playing like this and thinking of playing like this will help to keep the sound and the placement of the notes together more even. Now, if that seems very doable for you and you want to try for some bonus points, you can try to bring out the top note just a bit to help it stand out from the rest of the texture by pushing just a little bit on the upper finger in the right hand, whatever that finger may be. Now, this is very commonly done and really helps to give a bit more life to the sound. Listen for it as I play the first four measures once more. Hopefully you can hear that top voice cutting through the rest a little bit. Now, if you were listening closely, you might have noticed a difference in the sound for the demos I was just giving you compared to the playthrough at the beginning of the lesson. And that's because I was not actually using the pedal. I have, in fact, pulled my pedal up for you to see here. One of the benefits of using my keyboard instead of my real piano for this lesson. If you're using a digital keyboard or piano like this, your pedal could very well look like this. You may be using one of the little square pedals that come with many keyboard setups, but these are not too expensive. So I'd recommend switching over to one of these as soon as you can to get a bit more of an authentic pedal action. So what I've brought this up here for is to give you a bit of a demonstration about what kind of motion you're trying to get when using the pedal while playing. Now, as you probably know, when you hold down the pedal, it sustains any notes that you play, makes them longer, and when you release the pedal, the notes go silent. So, for example, they sustain, and then when I release the pedal, they go back. A few more times. Thanks for watching this lesson from Liberty Park Music. If you enjoyed this lesson and learned something from it, do us a favor, hit that like button. And if you really liked it, share it around. Let your friends and family check it out too. If you want to find more lessons like this or explore other piano-related topics, please come visit us at libertyparkmusic.com. We have full piano courses ranging from beginner to more advanced levels, and everything is online and streaming 24/7 so that you can design your music learning around your schedule and learn in the comfort of your own home from a talented roster of professional teachers and musicians. Come check us out.